You ever look at a map of global shipping lanes? No? Good. That means you're normal. But if you did, you'd see the oceans lit up like highways at rush hour, crisscrossing the world, carrying containers full of clothes, coffee, iPhones, and probably your next sofa. Here's the wild part. Over 90% of everything we trade, sell, or consume moves by sea. Not planes, not trucks, not the internet. The sea. And yet, most people have no clue who actually runs the show. It's not the US with its aircraft carriers, or even the countries with the biggest ports. Because when it comes to maritime trade, ownership and power are as scattered as the containers on a bad storm day. Now imagine all that trade squeezing through a few tiny gaps like toothpaste. Welcome to the choke points. Suez Canal. Blink, and $9 billion per day flows through it. Panama Canal, the shortcut that changed history. Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil squeezes through like it's in a checkout line. Strait of Malacca, Asia's traffic jam. One stuck ship, like the Ever Given blocking the Suez in 2021. And suddenly global trade hits a wall. Ships backed up for days. Oil prices jump. Your online order? Delayed until next season. Control one of these choke points, and you don't just move goods. You hold the stopwatch of the world economy. So, who's really steering this whole thing? Let's start with Greece. Tiny country, big boats. In fact, Greece owns more merchant ships than anyone else on Earth. More than the US, China, and Japan. It's a national obsession over there. Cargo ships are like family heirlooms. Then there's China. They don't just own ships, they own the ports. From Africa to Europe to the Pacific, China has been quietly buying up port infrastructure like it's playing Monopoly. They even run the port of Piraeus in Greece, one of Europe's busiest. And now the twist. Liberia, Panama, and the Marshall Islands, 3 countries with tiny economies and even tinier coastlines, happen to have some of the largest merchant fleets in the world. Why? Because ship owners love flags of convenience. Fewer labor laws, lower taxes, cheaper fees. It's like Airbnb, but for international loopholes. So a ship could be built in South Korea, owned by a Greek, flagged in Liberia, and carrying Chinese goods to a port China also owns. Who's in charge? At that point, you need a whiteboard and a strong coffee just to follow the money. Owning ships is one thing. Owning where they stop, that's real power. And here, China flexes harder than anyone. Through its state-owned company, COSCO, China has investments in over 90 ports across over 30 countries, including the massive ones in Rotterdam, Antwerp, and even Los Angeles. Ports aren't just parking lots, they're economic gateways. Control the port, and you influence what comes in, what leaves, and even how fast it all moves. And then there's Singapore. Small country, big ambition. It's the busiest transshipment hub on Earth. Ships stop here not because they want to, but because they have to. It's like the gas station in the middle of the ocean. Other big players, the UAE, Netherlands, and South Korea, all owning major ports or running global port logistics companies. In this game, it's not the size of your navy, it's the size of your port authority. Now here's where it gets tricky. You'd think oceans are just open space. International waters, anything goes. But nah. We've got something called UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. It's like HOA rules, but for the planet. Countries get 12 nautical miles of territorial waters and 200 nautical miles of exclusive economic zones. That's where you get to fish, drill oil, and tell others to keep out, politely. But not everyone's playing nice. China claims pretty much the entire South China Sea with its 9-dash line, drawing imaginary borders that ignore every neighbor. Other countries like the US don't even officially sign on to UNCLOS, but still enforce it when it suits them. So when we talk about who controls trade, it's not just ships and ports. It's also maps, laws, and who has the guts to enforce them. If you're still looking for a single boss of the seas, there isn't one. The ocean is a chessboard, and every move is about leverage. Greece owns the most ships. China owns the ports. The US patrols the sea lanes. Liberia and Panama lend out their flags. And tiny Singapore just charges you rent to pass through. Everyone's got a piece, but no one holds the whole thing. Which is why the next time your Amazon order says delayed, remember, somewhere out there, a ship flagged in Panama, owned by a Greek, loaded in China, is stuck waiting at a port run by a different country, arguing over who gets to unload it first. Because global trade isn't just complicated, it's chaotic, and beautifully so.